Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics video on the channel. It is Wednesday and time for some trade talk ahead of round 19 where 99.9% of us have already got two forced trades. There's a few people that have only got one or maybe none. And you're quite lucky and you can do some other trades. But a lot of us have got a Tristan Xerri and or a Connor Rozee and or a Nick Martin and or a Jason Horne-Francis. And there's probably a couple of others that, well, who knows? Like the way that the carnage is gone, when it rains, it pours, and we may have more. But at the moment, a lot of us have got multiple. I've got three. I've got Xerri, Martin, and Rozee. Obviously, Rozee's not 100% confirmed to miss. He's listed as a test, but it sounds like he's not going to play. So a lot of us have got three, and some have even got four. And if you've got two or less, you're probably doing a lot better than others. But let's go through the most traded in, because the most traded out probably is less important this week, because a lot of people have got some of the most traded out. So we'll go through, obviously, as always, the most traded in players. We'll normally focus on top 10 for both in and out. We'll go through a few other options as well, but a lot of it will be focused on the rucks and the forwards, I would imagine, with some defenders there. So let's get started off with the most traded in player of the week. And surprisingly, but then also not surprising, is Brodie Grundy, number one. Nearly 8,000 at coaches jumping on him. And he is very, very expensive. $1.186 million. But the ruck pig is on an absolute tear at the moment. And it brings a tear to the eye for all the fantasy coaches that own Brodie Grundy, particularly when he was at Collingwood and had those back-to-back seasons averaging 120. Because that's essentially what he's done for the last 9 weeks. Essentially going at over 120 points a game. Hasn't gone below 110. Multiple scores over 120. A few over 130 there as well. And it hasn't been an easy run. Like Essendon's a good matchup. Carlton's tough. Melbourne, tough matchup. Adelaide, tough matchup. Richmond, easy matchup. Port, easy matchup. Bulldogs, easy matchup. Freo, sort of middle there. And Saints, easy matchup. But there's been some tough ones in there, particularly, obviously, Melbourne and Adelaide, which are the two of the three most difficult matchups. 134, 124, it didn't matter for the ruck pig. Gets his hit outs, gets his touches, marks, tackles, does everything, as we know. And his run to end the year is glorious. It is absolutely magnificent. North Melbourne now, with no Tristan Xerri, obviously his suspension was upheld. So that he's going to be up against Coleman Jones or a Teakle or someone there. Probably Coleman Jones from what it's sounding like, but still, great matchup. Giants, Briggs gives up a lot of points. Essendon, one of the easiest matchups for rucks. Brisbane, Fort McInerney, it's a bit trickier, particularly because of the Gabba as well, but hasn't been as tough as previous years. Geelong, easy matchup, and West Coast, easy matchup, both for rucks there. So I think even though he's priced at 122, there is a decent chance he goes at over 120 still to end the year, and there could be some absolute monsters in there with some of those easy matchups. So I really like Brodie Grundy. If you've got the money to spend, it is really tricky though this week, because a lot of people, if you've got a Martin and Xerri that you're trading out, you probably either need A, cash in the bank to go get Grundy, or B, you need to go down on Nick Martin to a cheaper forward. So that'll obviously be the dilemma that coach will face this week. But Grundy at the moment is the most traded in player, and I'm interested to see if coaches do go for Grundy/Gawn, or they save a bit of money and go for maybe someone else in the ruck. Lachie Whitfield is second on the list for most traded in, 6.9k jumping on him. Big fan of Lachie Whitfield as a target this week. The Bombers this week obviously depleted, 922k for a guy that's, take out that injured 23, he's averaging about that 110 mark as a defender. He's a top 2-3 defender. If you remove that, he's obviously down a lot in money due to that injured score. A lot of us won't be able to trade into him this week unless you had a Nick Martin in defence, which a few coaches do. So obviously very fortunate you're able to get Whitfield, because I know a lot of people aren't able to do that this week. But 922 is a bargain for Lachie Whitfield. And as I said, Essendon, good matchup. Sydney, bit trickier, but then finishes with Bulldogs, North Melbourne, Gold Coast and Kettle. We all need him for this run. What I'm probably trying to paint myself is the fact, as someone that can't get him, is that Essendon, if they bring in Guelphy, Guelphy has done the job on Whitfield before. And then against Sydney, I think Braden Campbell could go to Whitfield. I don't think it's going to matter a great deal. I don't think Whitfield's going to just drop some 50s and 60s getting tagged. If he did get attention, maybe get some 80s and 90s, but still, I still love him as a target. I wouldn't be deterred by a couple of those there. I guess I'm probably just trying to tell myself that because I can't get him. And I expect him to go 120, 130 this week. So, yeah, Whitfield, great target if you can get in a defender. Lloyd Meek, interestingly, is the next on the list. 4.7k jumping on him this week. And I think because he's the guy if you've got Cherry, you go to him, and you can probably also get a Jack McCrae, Ryan Miers, Christian Petracca, one of those forwards that's right up there. He's been great, Lloyd Meat, last couple of weeks. Back-to-back 130s. I think 3 of his last 4 or something like that, or 3 of his last 5 are over 120. Yeah, there you go. So 3 of his last 5 over 120. Adelaide and North Melbourne, the only 2 scores below that, which obviously tough matchups for rucks. But just getting it done. He's getting done. The 13 tackles last week was really impressive there. Port, good matchup, but after that, it gets tough. Carlton with the dual ruck setups hard. Adelaide's hard. Collingwood's hard. Melbourne's hard. And also Brisbane is obviously a bit trickier as well. So don't love the run. If you want to be sort of aggressive in a way, you could get him for a week, make some money, puts up a good score, then you could sideways into a Gawn or an English or something like that next week when they get past a trickier matchups this week. But obviously we know what 1 week players in fantasy can do. You're not always guaranteed to trade them. So I don't mind Meek as an option, but I'd prefer, I think, the other rucks, I reckon, there in a Grundy and a Gawn and even an English there. Jack McCrae, 4th on this, 4K jumping on him. Great option. If you can get him and maybe a Gawn, like McCrae and Gawn this week as a combo for Whitfield and Grundy with a bit of cash in the bank, that's obviously would be probably ideal. If you can go Grundy and McCrae, then even better. But averaging 98.8, just consistent. I know that he hasn't put up like consistent tons week in, week out, but he'll get you the odd ton. He's just consistently getting like these sort of mid-80s to high 90s is most weeks, and with the few tons there. Obviously started with the 3 tons. Only tonned up 3 times since the first 3 weeks, but they've a couple of them been big, right? 139, 104, 123. And even early in the year when he played Geelong, went 153 with 35 touches, 8 marks, 10 tackles. Really good stat line. Could potentially have a decent score against Geelong this week, and his run to finish is amazing. Melbourne, North Melbourne, Richmond, Essendon, and then Giants. Obviously, Geelong's pretty good there as well, but the run really starts the week after against Melbourne. So a lot of people are going to target him over the next few weeks. He's probably someone I'm looking at getting next week, to be honest, if I'm looking for a forward. But, I do like Jack McCrae if you're trading into him. Max Gawn, 5th most trading player, 2,500 jumping on him. I'm actually surprised he is lower than Grundy and even a Meek. I thought Gawn would be probably the guy that most people would go to, because I know his break-even's high, and people are going to say, oh, well, he's been bad the last 3 weeks. He's gone 3 high 90 scores in a row. But they've been against the 3 toughest matchups for rucks in a row. Gold Coast, number 1. Adelaide, number 2. North Melbourne, number 3. I'm pretty sure. It might be North 2 and then Adelaide 3. I'm pretty sure it's 1, 2, 3 in order here. And I know he didn't have great scores, but before that had gone over a ton from rounds 5 to round 14 in a row. And his run there to finish is pretty good. So obviously Carlton is a bit trickier, but is at the G, which I think is fine. But then Saints giving up the most points over the last 5 to 10 weeks for rucks. West Coast, we know, is a great matchup. Dogs is a good matchup. Then Hawthorn, Collingwood to finish, which isn't too bad as well. So I think he's got a good run to finish. I think Gawn would be most people's number 1 target based on, I guess, saving the 100K there and obviously how he's gone for a lot of this year. So I'm a bit surprised he's a little bit lower down, but maybe people haven't adjusted their trades yet. Maybe they'll adjust it now knowing that Cherry is out, and maybe he'll rise a little bit more there. I probably would expect him to rise, actually, to be honest, but yeah, be interesting to see what happens from here. Chris Petracca, 6th most trading, just over 2,000 jumping on him. Again, he's a great target, I think, in the forward line. If you don't have enough money for a McCrae and you can get Petracca in one of those bigger rucks, I think he's a really good option. I know he's had some lower scores, hasn't put up as many tons as of late. Scored 105 last week with a massive last quarter. Tonned up in 2 of his last 3, though, which is nice to see. Adelaide, it was just a quiet game. Being inaccurate in front of goal, what's that? He's kicked 7 behinds and 1 goal in his last 3 weeks, which is disappointing. But we know Petracca's always done that with his goal kicking. Isn't normally always accurate. But he did have a tough run when he had a lot of these scores done 100, right? So Hawthorn, tough matchup. Brisbane, tough matchup. Sydney, tough matchup, but still tonned up. St Kilda has been a tough matchup. Collingwood, tough matchup. Port, tough matchup. So every tough matchup is when he went under 100. But all the easier matchups, like Essendon, easy matchup, tonned up. Freo, easy matchup. Richmond, easy matchup. West Coast, easy matchup, and tonned up in all those. And then post-bye, Gold Coast, easy matchup, tonned up. Adelaide, tough matchup, he didn't ton up. And he probably could have got a lot closer if he kicked straight. North Melbourne, easy matchup and tonned up. And he's got some easy matchups to come as well. Carlton has been pretty good lately as well. St Kilda, obviously, is tough there. But then West Coast, easy matchup. And then a few sort of tricky-ish games to finish the year. But I think Petracca, he's got a great role. I think he's a top 6 forward for me. I think he's probably a top 3 in terms of role, and obviously with Martin going out and Kenny's form sort of dropping. So I really do like Petracca as an option if you don't have him, but I know he is sort of pretty popular already. Marcus Bontempelli is number, 2, 4, 6, 7 on the list, and he's just behind Petracca as the 7th most traded in. If you can get a midfield this week, not a lot of people are buying in the mids this week, obviously as showing that the first mid is number 7, but great target. 3 of his last 4 over 120, obviously including the last 2 being 133, 166. That was, his tackling is what is impressing me. 22 tackles in the last 2 weeks. He's taken 5 and 8 marks as well, which I believe equals second high and then high, season high in marks. Obviously, disposals, I believe that was also a season high for him as well with the 37 touches. Beating the 36 he had against Richmond. Just getting it done now. And that was the first game on the weekend I watched where I'm like, that's the Bont. That's the Bont that we know. Obviously, 166 was even more than what I probably thought, but he looked fantastic. And I know Brisbane's a tricky matchup this week. Probably Dunkley will go head-to-head with him in the midfield. Maybe Dunkley goes to Richards, potentially, meaning that Bont can go quite well. His average at the Gabba's amazing as well, by the way. 122.6. I think he's played like 4 games there, but still. But then Essendon, easy matchup. Giants, tough. But actually, no, to be fair, they've been giving up points, and I don't think you'll get tagged there. And then Melbourne, West Coast Freo to finish is pretty nice. So I think Bont is a great target if you're looking in the midfield. Break even to 49. If you've either owned him or you haven't jumped on him yet, this would be a good week to do so because he'll be a lot more expensive, obviously, next week. So do like the Bont as a target. Coming in number 8, I'm actually surprised he's this high, but I'm really keen on Luke Parker this week. 2.1k jumping on him. He's the 8th most traded in this week. I'm surprised he is this high. I thought he was going to be a little bit more unique, to be honest, because obviously he's only 3% owned, but he's been really, really good the last 5 weeks. So if you look at his season again has been quite consistent, bar a couple of games that he had back-to-back. So, like, start of the year, did have a lot of tons, right, but was fairly consistent in the 80s, got the ton there. 69 wasn't great. But again, a lot of forwards being consistent, but it was these back-to-back games against Richmond and Collingwood where he only had 36 and 47. Don't really know what happened. Was he carrying something potentially? I'm not sure. But then when it comes to post-buy, he's been fantastic. 102, 85, 107, 94, 102. As a forward, that's great. A lot of people say, that was a lot had to do with Wardlaw being out, but Wardlaw was out and he got concussed in round 16. LDU got concussed in round 17, and that was when Parker didn't play. So I don't think that LDU and Wardlaw coming back in are necessarily going to hinder Parker to the extent that he would be a bad option. Like Wardlaw played in round 6 and 7. So what did he go here? 77, 97. Then rounds 9, 10, 11. Obviously, that 2 of those scores were when Parker was really poor. But then post-bye, Wardlaw played round 13, 14, 15, 16. And he went 102, 85, 107, 94. So I think that Parker is going to be fine. I'm just seeing LDU as well. I don't think LDU missed any games in that stretch either. So, he only missed, obviously, the game where he got concussed against the Dogs when Parker missed. And then, obviously, last week against Melbourne. So, I think that Parker is a really good option, a unique option as well, because he was essentially he was 0% owned in the top 1,000 and top 100. So, I think he's a good option if you want to go a little bit unique there. And a lot of people are probably searching in that 860, 850 range and getting maybe a Gawn potentially. If you're getting a Grundy, you probably had to have a bit of cash in the bank if you want to go one of these guys around the 850 mark. But Parker, I do like as well. His run coming up, I think, is decent. Sydney this week, revenge game. And funny enough, if you look at his game against Sydney early this year at Marvel, it was actually his high score of the season with a 113. And the other thing positive about Luke Parker is the first half of the year, he had quite low game time. So he had like 80% there, but then mid-70s here, up to 81% again, 79%, 82, 80, 81, and then 71% again. I wouldn't be shocked if he was carrying something in these 2 games again. I can't remember. But post-bye, his game time's been over 80% in all games, which is another positive. So that probably is also explained an uptick in sort of him going over the ton. I really like Luke Parker as an option. And as I said, his run, Obviously, Sydney's not great, but Geelong's good matchup. St Kilda is tough, but then Giants have been giving up points. Richmond and Adelaide. So some decent matchups to come. Obviously, a couple of tricky ones there, but as a forward, if he can go 90 plus most weeks, that's a great result when not a lot of forwards are doing that. So Parker, I do like there. Then a few more forwards to round out the top 10. So Isaac Rankin is at number 9, 1.5k jumping on him. How the tables have turned, really. A lot of people trading him out. Now a few people trading him in, obviously, with the state of the forwards. I think that I was one of them, but I think we probably sort of almost, not over-exaggerated, but I think we're probably looking at Rankin a lot as in terms of, how poor has he been since he's lost that role. But he had those games, the back-to-back 60s, where Sydney, really dewy, Crows won by, obviously, a lot, and no one from the Crows scored well because they were essentially in second gear. And then the Brisbane game when it was absolutely bucketing down. Outside of those two games, he's gone over 80 pretty much every week. He got a 77 there against Port Adelaide in a really tough matchup. But again, 89 against Collingwood, 89 against West Coast, the back-to-back 60 there, and 81 against Hawthorn, 82 against Richmond, and that should have been bigger. He was on, 60-odd at halftime. 100 against Melbourne. I know 5 goals, but we know Rankin can do that. And then 93 last week against the Dogs with 1 goal too. So I think Rankin is a good target. If you don't have enough money to get a Parker or potentially a few of those other forwards, I think Rankin is someone you can definitely look at. A couple of tricky games I don't love. Obviously, Gold Coast is good, but then, and it could be a bit tricky as well because I know Gold Coast will probably target Rankin, obviously being a former player there, and they did that early in the year. But then Port, Hawthorn, not great. West Coast is good. Collingwood, not so much. But then North Melbourne's good. So I think if he can be consistently over 80, he'll be a solid option there. And beggars can't be choosers, obviously, with the injuries and the amount of cash that they've dropped. And then Brian Miers rounding out the top 10 most traded in, 1,500 jumping on Brian Miers. And he's still going to be unique. He's already unique as it is, but not a lot of people are paying $9.75 for him. But I think he is a very good option particularly if you've already got McCrae. I think Miers, if you've got the cash, is the next best option. Like if you could go Miers and Grundy or Miers and Gawn, that could be a really good combo there. Plays high game time. He's scoring tons a lot of the time as well. The two he didn't was against Brisbane and Giants, which, funny enough, were 2 games where Geelong didn't look great. And they were obviously tough matchups. So, again, great run down the year. Like St Kilda, I think, is a matchup where he would suit Brian Miers. But then North Melbourne, Port Adelaide, Essendon, Sydney, and Richmond. Geelong will probably win a lot of those games, and I think Brian Miers will be involved heavily. So I do like Brian Miers as an option if you can afford to bring him in. Some other options just outside. Tim English, good option. Very unique as well. I'm probably not getting the respect, I reckon. Obviously, he's expensive, but he's just been killing it the whole year, averaging 109 back to the English of a few years ago. I know he's not averaging the 117 like he did that year, but look at this. Like, from the bye, he's gone over 115 in every game bar one, which was against Sydney. Brodie Grundy, we know that that's a tough matchup there. But like Riley O'Brien's a tough matchup, and he went 118. Cherry, he went 116. Richmond, good matchup, 138. St Kilda, good matchup, 120. But Meek's not an easy matchup, and he went 139. So, yeah, English getting it done. And he's got a good run after Brisbane. Like Essendon's great matchup. Giants, great matchup. Melbourne's tough. West Coast, good matchup. And Freo's an okay matchup. So, English has got a good run to end the year, and I think he is a bit of a pod. If you want to go for a pod, he's the pod play. A lot of people are going to go Gawn and Grundy as the 2 rucks, and people are going Meek as well. English is the guy that, if you want a bit of a point of difference, he could be the guy to go to. So I do like him. Dan Curtin's probably the pick of those sub 750k forwards that you're probably looking at. Obviously, with Horn Francis out there, I think they're exactly the same price. So Dan Curtin could just be the guy that replaces Horn Francis in your trade plans if you want. So his last 2 of his last 3 have been over 110. Obviously, that 50 against Melbourne was a low one, but he's playing massive time on ground, 92% time on ground the weekend, which is giving him chances to score points. And even before that, he had 4 games in a row over 70 pre-bye. So getting it done to an extent and a bit cheaper. I think he's someone that you can definitely take the punt on as an F6 for the time being. And who would have thought, like, it was when he was 100k cheaper, we were probably thinking, boat's probably gone, you probably can't start him. But now he's just playing really well, and I think you could do worse in the forward line. So I do like Dan Curtin, along with Jack Martin, who's got St Kilda, North Melbourne in his next 2. He's got a low break even, and we'll be able to make some cash for you. So break into 33. Next 2 matchups could be well over 700k, and you can sideways him to a forward that you like. So if you want to go him, he's there as well. Obviously, Horn Francis, we'll talk about him in the most trade out, but he's out for the season. So for those 1.1k coaches bringing him in, reverse that because he's not playing, obviously. Luke Jackson is an option because obviously ruck forward is solid, but he is expensive. So if you bring him in the ruck, I'd want... Well, to be honest, I don't know if I'd be going Jackson unless you've got heaps of these other options, because if you look in the forward line, I'd prefer Grind Miers and Jack McCrae, guys like that are cheaper than him. And in the rucks, he's not that far off of like your Tim English, your Max Gawns, guys like that. So unless you can't afford those two, and maybe you go Jackson and a McCrae, two set players there, or Jackson and Miers, then I that's probably the one time where I'd go for a Luke Jackson. But other than that, probably makes it a little bit tricky. Darcy Cameron is a solid option for like a 2-week play. Then you could jump to one of the other rucks. I think he goes Freo and then Richmond. But Craig McCrae did talk about that they might rest some players, and that could be a rest for Darcy Cameron. That's my only concern there. But he's been great all year, and obviously low score last week from against Jared Witts, but he is an option for sure. And there's a couple other options. If you can get into the midfield or even defence, Josh Dunkley's a good option. He will probably... Would he be over $1 million after this week? No, he'll still be under, but $950K for Josh Dunkley. Most people would say is a steal. 2 of his last 3 have been great as well, but that one in between with the 78 score, was it 78 or something? Yeah, 78 wasn't great, but yeah, 137, 124 in his other 2. There's some good matchups on the run home. So I don't mind Josh Dunkley as an option, but you're probably going to get either a big score or a sub-90 score the way he's been going the last few weeks. And Josh Dacos, obviously, if he has that midfield role, he could be a great target. Freo this week then goes into Richmond. Could be some really big scores there. I'm really keen to see what Craig McRae does with him this week. If he leaves him at half-back, and that was just a quarter play just to get him back in the game, or if they experiment a little bit more with him there. I think that they could definitely do that. He looked really, really good, and yeah, it's a pretty scary thing as a non-Collingwood supporter looking at Collingwood thinking they've now got another lever that they may be able to pull. So that is quite scary. So they're the most trading. I don't think there was anyone really. So Marshall, I do like Chad Warner. He's actually quite a unique option that not a lot of people are jumping onto in the forward line. I think Jaiden said last night on the pod, he's the... over the next 3 weeks, he's projected to be the number 2 forward behind Baz Smith, and that's just ahead of Jack McCrae, which is interesting. So some good matchups. Obviously, we've talked about Errol and how good his run is on the way home for a midfielder, but Chad Warner's got the exact same run, right? So he's got North Melbourne. Obviously, Giants is tricky, but then Essendon, then Brisbane's tricky, Geelong, West Coast. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4 of his last 6 are really good matchups. Giants and Brisbane being the other 2. So I do like Chad Warner as a forward option. Marshall, I wouldn't go there this week, but I think we probably haven't realised that Marshall's role was still pretty good on the weekend. It was a tough matchup. He still had 70% CBAs, which is down like 15%, which isn't really a great deal, right? It's a couple of CBAs. He was still number 1 ruck. He still had the most CBAs. I think it was 21 CBAs to 9, and still looked good, and his record against Geelong is pretty good. So I don't think I'd be advocating to trade into him. I'd still go for Grundy, Gawn, and English over him. But, yeah, if you've got him, you're not trading. But yeah, a few people might go there in the hopes that Heath is dropped, but I don't think he will be, unfortunately. Butter's a good option if you can go there, but I think Hawthorn will tag him. There was a bit made about them not tagging Sarong last week, and obviously they lost the game, and with Horn Francis out and no one, obviously those big guys in the midfield gone, Butters is the one guy there, which they might decide to tag him. So that's just a watch if you are looking at Butters or a Butters owner. Moving to the most trade out, probably don't really need to go into huge detail with these guys. We'll quickly go through it. So Nick Martin, ACL, out for the season. He's the most trade out, 21.7k jumping off him. Tristan Cherry, 3-week suspension's been upheld, so he's out for 3 weeks. He's got to go, obviously, because we don't have any ruck cover. 21.5k jumping on him. Connor Rozee, if you don't have one of the top 2 and he does miss, I think you can trade and be aggressive and get that score this week. Whitfield, great option. You're making almost about 100k from there. I think you actually might make just over 100k because obviously Whitfield's 922. Connor Rozee, oh, there you go. You make exactly 100k from doing that move. So if you've don't have one of the top 2 and you've got Rozee and you want to trade him out, then I'll tick that off. But if you've got, I'm trading Martin and Cherry before Rosie, for definitely. Horn Francis, if you've got all four, then obviously I definitely feel sorry for you because it's very unlucky to have all four. I've got 3 of the 4, but Horn Francis would be the one that you've probably got to hold, just because he's not worth as much as Martin, and Cherry's takes more priority. So in terms of for people that have got all 4, the priority is Cherry's number 1, just because he's got to go and there's no cover for him, and then Martin is number 2. Then I'd go Horn Francis 3 and then Rosie 4. But yeah, you're probably going to have to hold Horn Francis in most cases unless you don't have 2 of Martin, Cherry, Rosie, which is probably unlikely, but there are coaches out there that don't have a couple of these guys. So, Horn Francis obviously can go as well. He's out for this. I think they reckon he's out for the season. And then some rookies and guys here. So Zach Johnson, time to cash him in. He can go. Matt Kennedy, I struggle to... Most teams won't be able to trade, right? And I think a lot of people are sending him a rocket, right? If you don't have a few of these guys and you're in a position where you're looking at trading Kennedy, the only way that I would tick off trading Kennedy is if you've got a team that's essentially best 22 and you trade him out for 1 to 2 weeks. But then again, I don't even love that because you trade him out against Brisbane. He then comes up against Essendon the following week, which is going to be a great matchup. So he could go absolutely massive in this game. He still might go well here. I wouldn't be shocked if we found out that he was sick or something last week because he just didn't look good at all. And he just didn't get involved, didn't get his marks around the ground, didn't get his tackles. Just, didn't look like it. And again, I'd mentioned with Bont, they got a great run to finish the year. So I'd be holding Kennedy. Okay, he might drop, but then he's going to get back on track, I imagine, and then start scoring well and go back up in price. So again, if you're in a really good spot, you trade him out for a week, bring him back in, but that's going to be very, very little coaches doing that this week. Angus Clark can go. Cash him in. If you've got the ability to move on to Ned Long, he can go. Obviously, drop the low score, and I wouldn't be shocked if he got a rest at some point, just with Mitchell being there as well, and Collingwood trying to ease these players through to the end of the year. Will Setterfield, he's out for the season. He can go if you've got him. Miller's out for 3 to 4 weeks. He can go. Sam Doherty, if you still got him, a lot of people won't be able to trade him out. But if you have the ability to, I think he can definitely go. Drop the lower score on the weekend. Melbourne's a good matchup. I think he can, if he's still, with Fantasia and McGovern doing hamstrings and a few guys still not going to be back, I don't think Doherty's going to get dropped. I think he'll still be there. It'll just be interesting to see with Fantasia out, does Doherty play on the wing or play at half back with McGovern out? So that'll be interesting to see. But Melbourne is a good matchup. He could actually put a solid score up, but you're not going to want him past. Like, if you can trade him next week with hopefully no forced trades, he would be someone to go because, Hawthorn's not great. Freo, go, but you're not keeping him past that anyway. So he can go next week, but hopefully Doc can put up a good score for us this week in a time of need. And you can really see, though, right, he's what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's the 11th most traded out player, and only 381 people are trading him out, right? Like, a lot of people, there's only a few hundred people trading out these guys, right? But like, Graham suspended, he can go, Dale can go, Mills can go, Fraser, DeConey, Kako, all those guys can go. But it's just showing like how heavily weighted people have got forced trades, because like the top 2 are well over 21k, and that's crazy at this time of year to see there being over 20,000 coaches either trading a player in or trading a player out. And then you've got obviously Rosie's pretty close behind, along with Horn France and a couple of others. But yeah, that's what people are doing this week, unfortunately. It's really hard to make a top 5. I'm not going to make a top 5 targets this week because it's just it's going to be so team dependent. Forced trades are dictating it. If I had to make a top 5, probably not in order, but the 5 I like the most, if you can bring in anyone, I really like Grundy this week, regardless of price, just because of the run. Really like Whitfield. Really like McCrae. I really like Gawn as well. If you're not looking at Grundy, you've already got Grundy. Petracca, Bont, like those guys as well. Really like Miers. English as well, if you want to go a bit unique there in the rucks. I like Parker. There's a good, like Dacos, Dunkley, good options as well. So there's a lot of good options this week to bring in, but I'm not going to make top 5 just because people are either going to have some of these targets or they're just looking at a ruck or a forward. So hopefully sort of me talking about those players sort of lets you know who I like and who I don't. My trades this week. So, yes, obviously I'm in the same boat as everyone. I got the 3 in Martin, Cherry, Rosie. Holding Rosie, I'll have Tom McCarthy as cover, who's got Richmond. I also get, if Rosie misses, obviously, I also the ability to loop a Harry Ralston on the Thursday night. And if he scored well, I could potentially take that score if Rosie would have missed. So essentially get to loop between Ralston and McCarthy. Get to see Ralston score. If I don't like that, play McCarthy on field for Rosie. So Martin and Cherry are going for me. I'm going Tristan Cherry. I am going up to Brodie Grundy. I did have 182k in the bank, which is very, very handy this week. So thankfully trading Kyle Lohman out, banking a bit of cash. I didn't expect to be as helpful for forced trades. I was looking at what Whitfield and Goulden in, but completely changing that this week. So Grundy comes in for Tristan Cherry, and I'm also trading at Nick Martin, and I'm going for Luke Parker. I don't have enough cash to get Jack McCrae and Grundy. I could go Gawn and McCrae, but I just want Grundy. I really want Grundy in the team, so I'm happy to get Luke Parker. I'm a big fan of him as an option there, and I'll go for him and get those 2 trades done. So pretty happy with those moves there, and I can't see those 2 moves changing either. So, but let me know in the comments below, guys. Well, firstly, let me know how many of these bullets of the 4 that you've got. And let me know, actually, if you've got none of them. I'd like to see if anyone out there's got none of them, and comment below. And even if you've got one, comment below. I'm interested to see how many coaches have got none or only one of these forced trades, because you're in a good position if that's the case. You can make some moves. You can get Whitfield where a lot of coaches can't. You can get some other players. Maybe it's a Goulden in a good matchup. We didn't talk about him in the most trade in because not a lot of people are going to him, but he could be a really good option against North Melbourne. There's some good options that coaches won't be able to go to this week because of the forced trades. So let me know in the comments if you don't have many of the bullets. And let me know as well what your trades are, what you're planning on doing this week. I'll be keen to know what you guys are doing with your trades. If you do want a guaranteed answer to your question, because I can't always get to every question in the comment section or messages on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. If you do want a guaranteed answer to your question, the best place to go for that is to our Patreon, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. You get every Patreon member gets a team review every single week. Patreon Q&As come out every Wednesday night, Thursday morning as well. Answer all the questions that come through there. And if you just want to help support us a little bit extra as well. Only a couple of months to go as well. So if you want to get involved just for last little bit there, link is in the description if you would like to join up there as well. But I'll be back sort of very shortly with, I assume, with Tom, unless anything changes for our Game Day Squad preview show, as always on the Wednesday. And then tomorrow, Captains, I'll be recording that. So, and that'll be out. And then probably a watch-along as well on Thursday night for the Giants and Essendon game, potentially. And then Friday night, we'll look at a watch-along as well. So we'll let people know how that's there. And then pre-lockout chat, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. per time on Friday afternoon, answering all your questions leading up to Friday night footy, which, what's Friday night footy? Is that Brisbane? And I think that's Brisbane and Dogs. Yeah, Brisbane Dogs. So, yeah, looking forward to that one as well. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you smash a big thumbs up on the video. That'd be very much appreciated. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We're trying to get to 5k subs. So if you can help us do that, that'd be very much appreciated. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. So thanks everyone. Have a good night. See ya.